is Mr. Paul Scully from the United Kingdom on behalf of the European Conservative.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I welcome the report and congratulate Mr. Tinnicker-Strick for the report, which does show a way forward. And I'd also like to thank Annetta Cavadia as well and the Greek authorities for arranging and hosting our trip to Athens and Lesbos. The Greek authorities are working hard and effectively to cope with the huge amount of numbers that have been arriving on their shores, both refugees and economic migrants. At the peak, they had 5,000 people a day coming through to Lesbos, which is, as we've heard, has been a real strain to be able to cope with those huge numbers. I'm glad to see that with the EU-Turkish agreement, that has now shrunk, those numbers have shrunk quite considerably. We saw and heard of a mixed range of conditions. The stadium that we've just heard about, and you may have seen some of the photos during Mr. Strick's original presentation, where there were tents pitched in the middle of the building, inside the building, with families living in those conditions. There were also families actually camped outside that stadium as well, outside the camp, because they were distrustful of the authorities, not sure what their future was going to be beholden for them and if they were going to be detained. We saw conditions at Skalamagas, another reception centre in Athens, which were clean, and there were some educational facilities there, and there were volunteers coming in from outside that were speaking the native tongues of those people, and that was very much to be welcomed. And when I was there, I met a wonderful man, a Yazidi Christian, who spoke of the fact he brought his 10-day-old child across the mountains and then across that dangerous boat trip. The hotspot in Maria, though, was on Lesbos, was the one that I think surprised us all, because we could really feel the tension as we saw the protest of predominantly what seemed to be North African migrants complaining of the preferential treatment of Syrians in there. So we were unable to inspect the camp fully due to understandable security issues. Now, the situation in Europe, I believe that actually what we need to be doing is also giving Frontex more powers. At the moment, the EU-Turkish deal is able to allows us to be able to go in and the Turkish Coast Guards to return people to their source. But we need to give Frontex the power to interdict in the high seas and also be able to return their people to the points of disembarkation and safe third countries like they do in Australia. It's not right that without the absence of a common migration and asylum policy in the EU and no agreement, that infringement notices have been given to Greece and Croatia for failing to implement the Eurodac screening process when there are obviously extenuating circumstances. So I welcome the report, and I hope that this is actually one way more towards a dynamic, positive and more joined up thinking across the European Union.